Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. There's a little bit of snow, like sprinkling of snow, a dusting of snow. It's warmed up a little bit, so thank God. It was so cold. We've got like a little coal furnace. It's a coal furnace that's been converted into natural gas, and it is just near to impossible to heat up this house with this like big coal furnace. If you've ever seen a coal furnace, they're ginormous. We've got like a little coal room downstairs. I'm almost half tempted to make it into a coal furnace again. I don't know if those are legal in the state of Illinois. Probably not. But I feel like it'd be much easier to heat up our house if we were using and shoveling coal, although that probably is a lot of work to shovel coal and keep that fire going. But I hope you are a little bit warmer this morning. I've got so much to get to. We do need to talk about the woke pastor. I didn't get to her yesterday. I like to wait a little while on stories like this. They're like a little bit of a distraction, and Donald Trump, I said this, he shouldn't feed into this distraction. He did take to Truth Social and he's demanding an apology, not for himself, but for Americans who had to deal with her false doctrine, really. And we're going to get to that, and I've got scripture for you. But this woke pastor lectured, Trump and JD Vance on LGBTQ issues, on immigration issues, at what was supposed to be a bipartisan prayer service. So she took this prayer service and made it into political activist. Made the prayer service an opportunity to be a political activist and advocate for LGBTQ issues, which is so hilarious because Donald Trump is the first and was the first pro-gay president that we've ever had, by the way. So we're going to get to all of it, but I do also want to talk about a Democrat, hacky Democrat, who tries to work in this Elon Musk is a Nazi salute thing into this hearing for Trump's UN ambassador, Elise Stefanik. She's going through Senate hearings, Senate confirmation hearings, and then this Democrat, Senator Chris Murphy, he gets put in his place here, folks, real quick, when he tries to work in Elon Musk's so-called Nazi salute. This was a gesture. He said, "My heart goes out to you." We all know that Elon Musk is a little off when it comes to his social cues and his body language. He's probably on the spectrum. You don't get to be on that spectrum unless you are like look at him. He's a genius. I'd be shocked if he's not on the spectrum. I'm pretty sure he's got a hint of autism, something that, just makes his social interactions a little bit odd and his body language very, peculiar. And this has taken, of course, media by storm, but nobody's really paying attention to it. Everybody said that Donald Trump was Hitler and literally Hitler, and we voted for him anyway. Nobody's paying attention to people calling Elon Musk a Nazi sympathizer. People who are Nazi sympathizers typically aren't in support of Israel or go to Israel or provide funds to Israel in support of their efforts to defend themselves. Okay, so yeah, it's kind of hard to be a Nazi or a Nazi sympathizer when you support the Jews in Israel. We are also going to get to Mark Zuckerberg. This is kind of hilarious. He got busted, excuse my pun, folks, after he got caught looking at Jeff Bezos's girl's chest. Okay, so Jeff Bezos, he's got a wife, and he was caught eyeing her up at the inauguration. I think that this is hilarious. I rip on Mark Zuckerberg. To be clear, folks, I do not trust this guy. I don't think that he's actually going to fix Meta. He lost a lot of people, a lot of money. Me, by throwing me in Facebook jail. This is kind of my job, and I lost all kinds of opportunities because he censored individuals, and not to mention, I think that he's, responsible for the loss of life during COVID-19. Had people known and they weren't censored for saying ivermectin was an effective treatment, people would be alive today. I truly do believe that. So Mark Zuckerberg busted for thirsting after Jeff Bezos' girl. We're going to get to all of this here in the 6 o'clock hour. But first, I do want to start with the Jan 6 pardons. I want to start there, the Jan 6 pardons, because you've got a lot of critics in Illinois here, specifically Illinois Democrats. Dick Durbin, Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul, they're criticizing Donald Trump for pardoning the Jan 6 defendants. Now, the Senate Judiciary Democrats, they posted this in their social media. And they asked on social media, I wonder if Pam Bondi condemns the pardons for insurrectionists who attacked Capitol Police officers. Let's take a listen to this. Here we go.
Also advise the president on pardons. That's part of your responsibility as Attorney General. And so I'm asking you, do you believe that those who've been convicted of the January 6th riot, violent assaults on our police officers, should be pardoned? That's a simple question.
So, Senator, I have not seen any of those files, of course. If confirmed and if asked to advise the president, I will look at each and every file. But let me be very clear in speaking to you. I condemn any violence on a law enforcement officer in this country.
Also advise the president on pardon.
Okay, the individual you heard asking Pam Bondi these questions was Dick Durbin. Pam Bondi, we know, is Trump's pick for Attorney General, and she was asked about pardoning the Jan 6 defendants, and she says, hey, I haven't been briefed really on that. I haven't seen the files. If confirmed, and if the president asks me, I'll look at the files, but I'll be very clear. I condemn any kind of violence towards law enforcement in this country. Look, folks, I've talked about Chaz. I've talked about the riots, the 2020 riots, and just the unspeakable things. Officers were being gunned down in the streets, and murderers were not put on trial. They were not even charged with anything during the 2020 BLM riots, okay? Attorney General Kwame Raoul of Illinois, he said on social media, quote, our nation went through a peaceful transfer of power. I'm disappointed that was followed by pardons and commutations for people, several of whom have ties to well-known hate groups, the Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, who stood in the way of the process 4 years ago. A peaceful transfer of power, that process. Look, folks, the Proud Boys, and I'm just going to say it, and the Oath Keepers, these are actually really great groups. I'm going to say, be honest with you, they're called hate groups. But there's several individuals in these groups, and there might be, some fringy ones that go way, way out of control. But these groups during the BLM riots, think of now I'm not saying that Kyle Rittenhouse was a Proud Boy or an Oath Keeper, but a lot of the carnage that we saw in the cities and the violence that we saw in the cities coming from Antifa or BLM rioters, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers kind of were like this street vigilantes who kept all of that at bay, or tried to keep all of it at bay. Of course, they were labeled hate groups because they were going after the BLM rioters and the Antifa, and then they were seen as, because anti-fascism, BLM, Black Lives Matter, now they're known as hate groups because they went after these, really, I'll call them domestic terrorist organizations, BLM and Antifa. These guys were actually the heroes during that time period with the 2020 BLM riots and Antifa, where they'd go in and they'd just beat business owners to a pulp with baseball bats. That actually happened to a black business owner, by the way. BLM rioters actually broke into this business. I'll never forget it. It's like seared into my brain. This black business owner during the BLM riots, he had a baseball bat taken to his store, and they drug him out of the glass. They pulled him out of his store, and they beat him to a pulp, these rioters. So the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, they were kind of like vigilantes during that time period. Yes, they were violent, but they were only violent towards violent groups, and they were like fighting back. Okay, so I have a feeling that Pam Bondi, she says, yes, I condemn any violence towards law enforcement officers in this country. But I have a feeling if those law enforcement officers, which we now know, I mean, there's video of these law enforcement officers that day at the January 6th riot, taking rubber bullets, shooting people in the face with rubber bullets. There was gassing going on, and this all happened first, and then people started to fight back. Okay, that's what happened. I actually saw this video. They gassed a bunch of people, and there was this woman. She had like a water bottle, and she's trying to get the gas out of the guy's eyes. He was gassed by the Capitol Police, and the officer comes over, grabs the water bottle out of her hand, and throws it down to the ground. And a lot of this was people felt like they were forced into the Capitol. I have a lot of friends that were there that day. People said, I felt forced to go towards the Capitol because of the rubber ammunitions and the gas. They were almost spraying it all to get us to move forward and to go towards the Capitol. So I want to talk about Tom DeVore, Republican who ran against the Attorney General Kwame Raoul. Now, Raoul is out there, saying, oh, these people have ties to these hate groups, Proud Boy and Oath Keepers. Here's Tom DeVore's response. He said that Raoul hasn't taken notice that people of our country have grown tired of the political gamesmanship and the selective outrage. So Attorney General Kwame Raoul, he has sat in silence, folks, silence, when it comes to President Joe Biden pardoning his own son. He has sat in silence as Joe Biden pardoned all of his family members, which is hilarious because Donald Trump actually came out and he pardoned all of his family, but the poor guy didn't pardon himself. So we'll have to see if they go after President Joe Biden for his crimes. He's the big guy, right? And he sat in silence. Here is the real kicker here, folks. Attorney General Kwame Raoul sat in silence when President Joe Biden commuted the sentence of former Dixon, Illinois comptroller. Her name is Rita Crundwell, and she stole millions and millions of dollars from Illinois taxpayers during her time as the comptroller. So in February of 2013, Crundwell, Rita Crundwell, she was sentenced to 19 years, 7 months in federal prison. She was embezzling $53 million from the city of Dixon, the Dixon taxpayers. And we can see that she's been doing this, and it went all the way back to 1990. Okay, so from 1990 to 2013, she admitted to actually using taxpayer dollars for her personal horse breeding business expenses, all kinds of things. So, I would have to agree here with Tom DeVore when he says, look, Attorney General Kwame Raoul is silent when it comes to all of these issues. And he's, doing this thing where it's like selective outrage, where he's outraged about the J6ers being pardoned, but he's not outraged about this woman who stole millions, $53 million from the residents, Dixon, from Illinoisans, and he commuted her sentence. So, Trump, he also echoed the same kind of comments of Tom DeVore, where Trump was like, look, you should be focused on what Joe Biden did. He gave pardons to a lot of criminals the other day. Trump, he actually was questioned by a reporter in Washington, D.C. about his J6 pardon of defendant Daniel Rodriguez, who pleaded guilty to stun gunning an officer that day. On January 6th, no guns. There was one guy, I think, who had a concealed carry weapon. I don't know if people say he shot it into the air. I don't know if that's true. But there was like one person there who had a concealed carry weapon and didn't discharge it at anybody. The only person who died that day, by the way, is Ashley Babbitt at the hands of a Capitol Police officer who has yet to be charged. I hope that he's charged. But this reporter asked Donald Trump, hey, why should Daniel Rodriguez be pardoned? And Donald Trump had an amazing answer. He says, murderers today are not even charged. You have murderers who are not charged all over. And you take a look at what's going on in Philadelphia. You take a look at what's going on in LA, where people murder people and they don't get charged. These people have already served years in prison, and they've served them viciously, the years in prison, at this disgusting prison. It's horrible. It's inhumane. Joe Biden gave a pardon yesterday to all kinds of criminals. These are criminals he gave pardons to. You should be asking that question. Why did he give a pardon to the January 6th Unselect Committee when they burned down and destroyed all the documents, which would have showed that they were in the wrong, not me? Why did they give a pardon to all of his relatives, Joe Biden's relatives? So yes, why are we selectively outraged about the J6 defendants receiving pardons? Here's what Tom DeVore who ran against Kwame Raoul, the current attorney general, said, "The attorney general will have to excuse me when I give a big yawn to his attempt to create rage bait in regard to the pardons issued by President Donald Trump. The people of Illinois see the attorney general's comments for what they are. This is childish schoolyard politics." All right, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. We'll be right back. Yeah, where is the cop that killed Ashley? I forget the cop's name who killed Ashley, to be honest with you. I gotta go look him up. But another thing too, where you had Dick Durbin saying to Pam Bondi, are you going to be in favor of pardons for J6ers who are violent against law enforcement officers? Okay, folks, I think that we can all agree that violence against law enforcement officers is probably necessary in a situation where you are being attacked. If anybody's attacking you, your innate biological response is to defend yourself if you're being attacked, okay? And if you aren't doing anything wrong. So that's one thing that separates, let me try to think of one. There's all kinds of instances where you've got a criminal where a cop is saying, hey, put your hands on your head, put your hands behind your back, and then the criminal doesn't listen and then engages the officer. That's not the same. We're talking about how these Capitol Police officers engaged these people who were just standing around doing nothing at a rally, and then they responded with hitting them with flagpoles, stun gunning them, using their own weapons against them. It got chaotic. I'm not going to say that. And I do think that there were some commutations. So these aren't a pardon. These are like less than a pardon. And Donald Trump gave out some commutations, which suggests to me he poured over all of them. He just didn't give a sweeping pardon to everybody. Whoever was like violent for no reason, wasn't defending themselves, I'm sure they got a commutation and time served. Like, hey, you've already served your time. You've been in this prison for many years. We're going to give you a commutation. Cop's name is Bird. Thank you so much. Actually, I think Bird was the one who ripped the water bottle. I'd have to look into it, but there's this Capitol Police officer. People were being gassed. It was just really tragic that day. And really, I think it was the Capitol Police officers turned on the crowd, and then all of a sudden the crowd had to respond. And either it was to go into the Capitol or it was to defend themselves, because this is how it was. You had the Capitol here, and then you had all the rally members here, and then you had the Capitol Police officers surrounding them, gassing them, rubber bullets. Where are you going to go? You're going to go towards the Capitol, right? And then once you couple in the videos with the Capitol Police officers who were ushering people inside of the Capitol, you couple that with them, and they're like, oh, okay, I'll just walk in. It seems like it's kind of crazy out there. It seems like the Capitol Police officers are dealing with a bunch of crazy people out there. I'm going to walk in. Then you had people, walking within the velvet robes. They were pointing at things like tourists. And it's really unfortunate. Yeah, this cop needs to be brought to justice. What I've seen, and I mean the prosecutor in Matthew Perna's case. Matthew Perna was a J6er who ultimately killed himself. He was sentenced to 20 plus years. He thought his life was over. And the prosecutor later told his aunt, I believe, if he had just waited, we would have pled that terrorist charge down. I mean, what? Why'd you charge him in the first place with terrorism if you weren't if that wasn't like what he did? Why would you charge him with that? Because it was all political, folks. They wanted to make a political statement with these Jan 6ers. And they wanted to silence Trump supporters into submission by going after, hey, see, you support Donald Trump, you're going to wind up like Matthew Perna, you're going to wind up like Ashley Babbitt dead. So Ashley Babbitt, she was crawling through, and what I had always heard from mainstream media, this was a really interesting story about Ashley Babbitt. What I had always heard from mainstream media is that she scaled the wall of the Capitol, broke a window, and busted her way into the Capitol. Not true. She walked into the Capitol. She was amongst a huge crowd, and there was an already broken door. So she's in the Capitol, and there's this doorway, and then the door has glass paneling in it. Okay, now the glass paneling had been broken, and there were cops behind her in the Capitol, and she was crawling through this door that had the glass kind of shattered out of it, and she was crawling through, like, totally not looking in front of her. And Byrd, the Capitol police officer, I think his name's Michael Byrd, Capitol police officer, shot her at point blank range, and I don't even think she was looking. So it's like he didn't tell her anything. Michael Byrd, yeah, that's his name, Lieutenant Michael Byrd. Yeah, he definitely needs to be brought to justice. I'm back. We'll discuss a little bit about illegal immigration. I want to talk about, birthright citizenship and how, you've got Governor J.B. Pritzker saying that birthright citizenship is constitutional. It's not. People are misinterpreting the 14th Amendment. Actually, it's unconstitutional, birthright citizenship. So I want to bring you that so that way you're equipped with a defense against these liberals and against the woke mob who says that, it's unconstitutional what Donald Trump did with this executive order. It's not unconstitutional. Actually, it's the opposite. Hey, good morning. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single morning. I appreciate you taking a listen to how, it's just hypocritical, really. The left, if they don't have any standards, but the only standards that they do have would be double standards if they did have them. They don't have any standards. So Attorney General Kwame Raoul, he stayed silent on Rita Crunf. Oh gosh, what's her name? Rita. She embezzled $53 million from Illinoisans in Dixon, Illinois, when she was the comptroller, and she embezzled this money for her personal business, her horse breeding business, which is just hilarious. And Joe Biden commuted her sentence. Then you've got, Joe Biden pardoning his family members, Joe Biden pardoning his son Hunter. And Attorney General Kwame Raoul remained silent, but yet he's selectively outraged about the January 6ers being pardoned when they've already served a lot of time, as Donald Trump said, and they served those viciously, those years in prison, these past 4 years in prison viciously, because it's a disgusting prison. I've seen the pictures. They're given like a little thin mat to sleep on. They've got buckets to go to the bathroom in. It's disgusting. One of them didn't even have really clothes. They had like boxer shorts, and that was it. And it's cold in there. It was inhumane what they had done to these hostages, really, these January 6 hostages. So I do want to switch gears. Let's talk about illegal immigration. Many illegal immigrants reach the border and apply for asylum, only to give the courts only to be given a court date years and years and years and years down the road. And they're then permitted to apply for a temporary work visa 180 days after the asylum claim. This leaves the illegal immigrants legally in the country and legally able to work, which is incentive to those seeking life in the U.S. by illegal means. Okay, so this is how it all kind of works out. Where you come to the country with an asylum claim, it leaves illegal immigrants legally in the country and legally able to work. And it's an incentive to those seeking life in the United States by illegal means. They want to get here, and it's incentive to do all of this, or it's incentive for them to do this, to come to the country illegally, because we are going about it all wrong with the birthright citizenship, DACA, things like that. And I think that why I wanted to bring this today is because there's just a lot of untruth or mistruths or just blatant lies that Governor J.B. Pritzker and multiple Democrats have said about Donald Trump's policy, this executive order where he wants to get rid of this automatic citizenship, birthright citizenship, this automatic citizenship that comes by virtue of being born on American land in the events that your parents, the parents of that child, are not legally in the country here themselves. So I don't have any issue with asylum seekers. No issue with asylum seekers. Hell, I don't even have issues with work visas. We need to reform our immigration system so that way we don't have this thing where, you know, you apply for a temporary work visa and your court date for your asylum claim isn't years down the road. We need to get government more efficient, and I'm hoping DOGE can do something where we get it to be more efficient, where that court date isn't set years down the road when you're seeking asylum and you're an actual asylum seeker. There's a very specific definition for asylum seeker. I've talked about this. You have to come from a country that you're being politically or religiously persecuted and then you have to come straight from that country to the United States in order to seek asylum. You can't go to Mexico and then come through the southern border. You can't go to a different country like Canada and come through the northern border. You can't do any of that. You have to come through a legal port of entry right away in the United States. You can't go to a country or country hop, as I like to say. You have to go straight to the country in which you're seeking asylum. That is an asylum seeker. And your court date should be within, I would say, 6 months. We have to get it down to 6 months. Your court date should be within 6 months, not years and years and years down the road. And then you're forced to kind of get like this temporary work visa, which allows you to stay in the country legally. And therefore, you caused like this you're incentivizing people to come here and come here illegally because of that brokenness where, you know, they don't want to go through the trouble of an asylum claim. They don't want to go through the trouble of a work visa and having their court date be years and years and years away. So what you're doing, you're having people come through illegal ports of entry. That's totally wrong. There needs to be consequences for those actions. You need to be deported and you need to be treated like a criminal because you are a criminal. You're doing an illegal thing. You're not willing to go through the process like seeking asylum or naturalization. I know people who've done naturalization and have become naturalized citizen. It's not impossible. It's tough. I think there needs to be reform. We definitely need to make sure that our asylum seekers are getting a court date within the first 6 months that they arrive. And I also think that we need to reform our work visas a little bit, get rid of H-1Bs. I'm totally against those. Regular student visa is good, and temporary work visa is good. But the H-1Bs, I don't like that because what we're doing, we're taking the best and the brightest from these countries. At least that was what the intention of this program is from these countries. And these countries actually need their best and brightest. There's always somebody in the United States, I think, that could do the job of, you know, a doctor, and maybe like the 1 to 2%, like the top 1 to 2% of doctors you can't find here in the United States. Okay. But H-1B has become a program where you've got, you know, Uber drivers or, customer service representatives coming over here on an H-1B and software engineers. And come on, I mean, we can definitely find Americans for those jobs. We don't need to fill those jobs with an H-1B visa immigrant. So there's a few things that we could do to reform the system, but let me talk a little bit about the birthright citizenship. People like Governor J.B. Pritzker, leftists, they're going to say that Donald Trump's executive order is unconstitutional and that the 14th Amendment allows for birthright citizenship, which is just wrong. Michael Anton, he is a lecturer. He is a guy at Hillsdale College. He's a former national security official in the Trump administration, and he has this amazing op-ed out there. He's gone on, Tucker Carlson talked about this before, and he talks about why Trump and how Trump, he really helped me understand why Trump did this and how Trump did it legally and how it, we've seen people incorrectly interpret the 14th Amendment. His op-ed and his interpretation, really, and it's not even his interpretation, I'll get to that, of the 14th Amendment. Michael Anton, he's got an amazing op-ed. I can share it with you if you text me at 309-451-9299. When we come back, I'm going to discuss how the 14th Amendment actually it doesn't allow for just birthright citizenship. There's two criteria here within the 14th Amendment that somebody has to fulfill in order to be considered a citizen. Yes, you have to be born here in the United States, but there's another criteria that you have to meet. And the 14th Amendment is pretty clear about this. And the origin of the 14th Amendment, when you look at the origin, where it came from, it makes sense that, or it doesn't make any sense that birthright citizenship you automatically are granted U.S. citizenship if you were born here. It's absurd. It's historically, constitutionally, philosophically, practically, just totally absurd. All of it is totally absurd to be, an anchor baby or to be a citizen just because you're born here and your parents are non-citizens. Okay. Let me take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Okay, so you guys are really gonna like this. This is Michael Bird, or not Michael Bird. Oh my gosh, it's early. Cop's name is Michael Bird. Justice for Ashley Babbitt. Yeah, she was the only one killed that day. She was unarmed. Where's that cop that killed unarmed Ashley Babbitt? She wasn't even looking, folks, and she was shot at point blank range. But you guys are really gonna like this birthright citizenship argument. The purpose of the 14th Amendment was to resolve the question. Of the newly free slaves and if they were citizens. Okay, they were obviously born here in the United States. Now, birthright citizenship, if it were a thing, we wouldn't have needed the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment kind of resolves this question of citizenship for the newly free slaves. Now, the 14th Amendment came from after the Civil War. Following the Civil War, some people in the South, the Democrats in the South, by the way, insisted that the states had a right to deny citizenship to these freed men. So they said, hey, we have the right to deny citizenship to the freed men. In support, they cited 1857's disgraceful Dred Scott versus Sanford decision, which held that no Black American could ever be a citizen of the United States. So there was already precedent saying that, hey, just because the Black people or the slaves were born here does not mean they are granted citizenship. Now, the 14th Amendment changes this, but it's more than just the birthright citizenship. Constitutional amendment was thus needed to overturn the Dred Scott case and define the precise meaning of American citizenship. Okay, now birthright citizenship was never a thing. Constitutional Amendment 14, it discusses the actual definition of what a citizen is. So here is the definition in the amendment. It's the very first sentence here. I'm going to throw it up on the screen here for you. So that way you can look at this. All persons born and naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and state wherein they reside. Okay, so they are citizens if they're born or naturalized. So you go through a naturalization process if you're an illegal immigrant. Or you're born here and you have to be subject to the jurisdiction thereof. There is a very specific meaning actually to the subject to the jurisdiction thereof, what that actually means. The amendment clarified for the first time here actually that federal, so here's another thing, the sanctuary state crap that we've got in Illinois. Governor J.B. Pritzker says we're a sanctuary state. This amendment stops all of that. Like all of that stuff is unconstitutional and illegal because this amendment clarifies for the first time that federal citizenship precedes and supersedes its state level counterpart. Notice how it says are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. This is secondary, and that was done on purpose because it precedes and it supersedes the state level counterpart, which means this whole sanctuary state or status state stuff is just complete bogus. No state has the power to deny citizenship or to grant citizenship. It is all starts at the federal level, your federal citizenship. Then it is the state wherein you reside that you're a citizen of. So that was the whole thing with the 14th Amendment, was because the Southern Democrats, the Southern states, they wanted to, weigh in on this issue of federal or of immigration and citizenship, or not immigration, citizenship for the freed slaves. And this amendment very clearly states that they are secondary, and the federal government supersedes, or the federal citizen supersedes your state counterpart. Okay, your state level counterpart. I also want to talk about, birth or naturalization, i.e. lawful immigration, which would be the asylum seeker naturalization process, and being the subject to the U.S. jurisdiction, being subject to the U.S. jurisdiction. We know what the framers meant by this, because there's actually letters, primary documents that tell us what they meant by subject to the U.S. jurisdiction or U.S. jurisdiction. There's this guy, his name is Lyman Trumbull of Illinois, actually. Woohoo, he's a principal figure in drafting this amendment. He defines subject to the jurisdiction as not owning allegiance to anybody else, that is no other tribe or country. Okay, Senator Jacob Howard of Michigan, a sponsor of the clause, further clarified the amendment and explicitly excludes the citizenship persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, or belong to families of ambassadors or foreign ministers. Okay, so you are considered a foreigner if your parents are illegal citizens or are illegal immigrants and are foreigners, or your family is an ambassador of a foreign nation or a foreign minister. Like, you have to have allegiance to this country. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this because it's important, because you are going to hear Governor J.B. Pritzker talk about how it's unconstitutional, the executive order that Donald Trump did, and it's not. Woohoo! Let's talk about it. Grab a cup of coffee, drink a nice warm cup of coffee with me as it kind of snows this morning. A little bit of flurries I saw in the sky this morning, a little dusting we got last night. It's a little bit warmer, 26 degrees. It's so much better than -9 degrees. The other day I saw that and it was -9 degrees, my digital temperature here on my desk. Look, folks, before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about the 14th Amendment. You're going to hear Governor J.B. Pritzker and other Democrats say that Donald Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship is unconstitutional, and that it's just so far from the truth. In order to fully understand this, I think we have to go back to where the 14th Amendment was born. This 14th Amendment was born because they wanted to resolve the question whether freed slaves after the Civil War would be given citizenship, the question of citizenship for newly freed slaves. Okay, so following the Civil War, some Southern states, Democrats, by the way, Democrats enslaved people, not Republicans. Abraham Lincoln, we live in the state of Illinois. We know that he was a Republican with the Emancipation Proclamation, freed the slaves. The Southern states, they wanted to deny citizenship to the free men, okay, to the newly freed slaves, the newly freed slaves. Thank you, Abe Lincoln. They wanted to deny citizenship. They cited the 1857. This was a disgraceful decision. In support of them denying citizenship, they cited Dred Scott versus the Sanford decision. Okay, so this is the Dred Scott versus Sanford decision, and it held that no Black American, just because they were born there, could ever be a citizen of the United States. Hence, the 14th Amendment, a constitutional amendment, was necessary to overturn Dred Scott and define the actual precise meaning of American citizenship. Okay, so the very definition is in the first sentence of the 14th Amendment. If you were to have a pocket constitution, you can read along with me. The first sentence says this. Let me be clear. all persons born or naturalized. So there's a naturalization process for illegal immigrants if they want to become citizens of the United States. All persons born or naturalized. So why would we have naturalized in there if birthright citizenship was just a thing? But anyway, you have to be naturalized. Born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Okay, so there's two criteria here. You either have to be born or naturalized, and you have to be subject to this jurisdiction thereof, subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. Okay, so this amendment does a couple of things. First, it clarifies that the states have no say over citizenship. You get state citizenship, but your federal citizenship precedes and supersedes the state level counterpart, just in that first sentence, because it says that you are a citizen of the United States, and then therefore you're a citizen in the state wherein you reside. So it's secondary. So this whole sanctuary state crap, you can't grant citizenship at a state level. You just can't, because the federal citizenship takes precedent in this sentence in the 14th Amendment. So the whole sanctuary state, sanctuary county, city, all of that crap, complete bogus. And the reason why they did that was because the southern states, they thought that they could grant citizenship or have, they were the arbiters of citizenship, the states. And this amendment clarifies it. Hey, no, federal citizenship precedes and supersedes its state level counterpart. Okay. Now, the second part of this amendment, which is so crucial, it specifies two criteria for American citizenship. Number one, birth or naturalization, i.e. lawful immigration, asylum seeking claim, the naturalization process. I know people who have been naturalized as citizens, they're legal immigrants. And being, so you got the birth or the naturalization process, and, so it's not or, it's and being subject to the U.S. jurisdiction. Now, we know what that means, subject to the U.S. jurisdiction. We know that the framers of that amendment, who actually has a little bit of history here in Illinois, his name is Senator Lyman Trumbull of Illinois. He's a principal figure in drafting this 14th Amendment, and he defined with primary documents when he was crafting this amendment, he defined what subject to the jurisdiction actually means. It means not owing allegiance to anybody else, that is, to no other country or tribe. And then Senator Jacob Howard of Michigan, a sponsor of the clause, further clarified the amendment explicitly excludes citizenship persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, who belong to families of ambassadors or foreign ministers. So your parents, if they are not naturalized or born here in the United States, and if they give birth to you on the land of the United States, that does not mean you have citizenship. They have to be either naturalized, born, and they have to be subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So for decades, U.S. officials led by immigration enthusiasts in and out of government have acted as though subject to jurisdiction of simply means subject to American law. That's not true. It's true of any tourist who comes here, right? If you're a tourist, you're not a citizen, right? You have to abide by American law. We saw what happened to Brittany Griner when she didn't abide by Russian law while she was in Russia as a tourist, or she wasn't, getting citizenship. You have to abide by the law. Duh. Okay, that applies to tourists. Subject to the jurisdiction thereof is totally different from subject to American law. As long as you're, following the law and everything, then you're a citizen. No. The framers of the 14th Amendment added jurisdiction clause precisely to distinguish between people to whom the United States owes citizenship and those whom it does not. The United States owes citizenship to people who are subject to the jurisdiction thereof, which means you cannot have an allegiance to another country. If your parents have citizenship elsewhere and not the United States, and they give birth to you, then you have an allegiance to another country because your parents are in that other country. Okay, so, or at least are citizens of that other country and not citizens of the United States. So, birthright citizenship, this executive order, great. It is actually constitutional. Barack Obama's DACA recipients, their DACA and that whole program where, DACA recipients could come and they could be granted legal status. He did this knowing that it was unconstitutional. I definitely believe that of Barack Obama. Barack Obama did the DACA thing, and he directly used and manipulated the language within the 14th Amendment to implement this unconstitutional program. And now there's this, everybody thinks that birthright citizenship is constitutional. It's not. You have to be subject to the jurisdiction thereof. There's two criteria. You have to have allegiance to this country. And if your parents are not citizens, or if they're not born here, then they have no allegiance to this country, which means you cannot be a citizen. I know it's hard to kind of wrap your brain around, but this is totally constitutional. And what Barack Obama did with the DACA program, that's unconstitutional. I've got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. I hope I explained that. There's probably somebody who could explain it better than me. I really like Michael Anton, his op-ed here. Birthright citizenship is a great magnet for illegal immigration. This magnet attracts not just millions of the world's poor, but also increasingly affluent immigrants. Maternity hotels for pregnant Chinese tourists advertised openly in Southern California and elsewhere. Fly to the United States and have your baby. And it's just silly that the government will give him or her American citizenship. It's just completely silly if you think about it. In the origins of the 14th Amendment, it makes sense. They wouldn't have had to change, it, because it was already that way. It was already where birthright citizenship, they couldn't be granted, so they had to define it. So what is the definition within the 14th Amendment? The definition, there's two criteria to become a U.S. citizen. You have to be subject to the jurisdiction thereof. They're going to say, oh, you have to follow American law, which is just not true. We have American citizens who break the law every day, and they're still American citizens, okay? That's just not an argument. Leftists use that as an argument, but tourists, people who aren't citizens and just come here to visit, they have to follow American laws. We know Brittany Griner had to follow the Russian law. She didn't. That's why she was jailed, and we had to, negotiate for her to come back. And we traded her for like an arms dealer, right? We gave them a Russian arms dealer in exchange for Brittany Griner. But you have to follow their laws once you're in that country touring. And it has nothing to do with citizenship. So subject to the jurisdiction thereof means that you have to have some sort of allegiance to the country. As Senator Lyman Trumbull of Illinois said, he was a principal figure in drafting the amendment. He said that, hey, you cannot owe your allegiance to anybody else. And if your parents are not citizens of the United States, they owe their allegiance to somebody else. You as a child have an allegiance with your parents. That means you have an allegiance to another country or tribe. Senator Jacob Howard of Michigan, he further clarified the amendment explicitly. And in his letters, because he was a sponsor of the clause, he said, persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, or who belong to families of ambassadors or foreign ministers are not citizens. Okay, so the birthright or the birth, if you're born in the United States, it excludes people who are foreigners, aliens, or who belong to families of ambassadors and foreign ministers. So it's very constitutional, but actually it's more constitutional than what was the status quo with DACA and all of this, where you could just come here and be born, or you could have an anchor baby and that baby is given citizenship. That's not how this works. So birthright citizenship, not constitutional. I am going to switch gears here. We're going to talk a little bit about some news. I want to get to the news. This woke pastor lecturing Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, on LGBT issues during this, what was supposed to be a bipartisan prayer service. We're going to get to that. Plus, Mark Zuckerberg taking a glance at Jeff Bezos' wife's boobs. Yes, we're going to get to that here in just a second. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Hey, good morning. Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to be talking a little bit about that woke pastor that lectured Donald Trump and JD Vance on the LGBTQ issues, on immigration issues, and this was supposed to be a bipartisan prayer service, but of course she took it as an opportunity to be a political activist and advocate for LGBTQ issues. Which is so funny because Donald Trump was the first pro-gay president ever, openly pro-gay president ever. So we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to chat a little bit about this Democrat who tried to, slip this Elon Nazi salute thing into a hearing for Trump's UN ambassador, who is Elise Stefanik. And he got put in his place, though, folks. Don't worry. This Democrat senator. I'm going to be right back. Also talking about Mark Zuckerberg, busted for thirsting after Jeff Bezos' wife during the inauguration. That's pretty funny. But we're going to be right back. According to Matthew 7:15, beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. Let's talk about the pastor and her false teaching. Sound doctrine is crucial for your salvation, and that's why the Bible warns of false teaching. This pastor is no exception. She advocates for nonsense at the expense of morality. When she decided to lecture Donald Trump about LGBTQ issues and immigration issues. And what an awful woman. We're going to be right back with that. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Welcome to the Red Kingdom. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the News Talk Bloomington Normal. According to Matthew 7:15, beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. Sound doctrine, like I said, is very crucial. And the Bible actually warns us of false teaching. This pastor is no exception. She's advocating for nonsense over, biblical teaching, morality. Take a listen to this woman who lectures, this woke pastor who lectured J.D. Vance and Donald Trump on LGBTQ issues, immigration issues, and more. Take a listen.
I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger, for we were all once strangers in this land.
Okay. So there you have it. Wow, what an awful woman. Firstly, the fact that she's talking about children as if they could change their gender or their sexual orientation is deeply deranged, concerning. Children do not have sexual orientations. Age of consent is a thing. They can't change their gender. They don't have the capacity to really, we don't allow kids to get tattoos until the age of 18, right? So why would we allow them to change their gender? Secondly, the whole immigration rhetoric. This is one of the main reasons why Trump won was immigration. Look, the Bible does talk about being kind to foreigners. I'm actually in Abraham right now. I'm reading the Bible. It's going to take me the entire year, but I'm in this Bible study. It's a chronological Bible, and I have a daily reading. And it talks about how Abraham is really, really kind to the people whose land he is in. We're not talking about people who are kind or give the United States the respect of following our immigration laws, okay? Asylum seekers, they're following immigration laws, they're getting the asylum claim. If they meet the criteria of an actual asylum seeker, somebody who's being politically or religiously persecuted and who comes to the United States first and flees that country and seeks refuge here in the United States. The Bible consistently talks about, foreigners and how they treat the people who are harboring them or allowing them to stay temporarily, or, I think Abraham in Genesis gives all kinds of calf and cattle and all of that to the guy who allows him to stay. And we have all of that. H-1Bs, temporary work visas. We treat our immigrants very, very, very well. We do not treat the people who skirt the system and try to enter through an illegal port of entry with the same or with the respect. Treat your neighbor as you treat yourself, right? This is a principle that love your neighbor as you love yourself. And how you would like to be treated. This is a principle in the Bible, and they're not giving us this. Respect is earned. It's not just given. Okay, if you don't respect our country enough to go through a legal port of entry and come over the border through an illegal port of entry, and you're trying to skirt the process, that's not biblical. There are plenty of instances in the Bible where foreigners give respect, crazy amount of respect, to the people whose land they are on. And then in turn, you are to be kind to the foreigners. So actually, Abraham, I forget the name of the guy in Genesis who essentially Abraham wants a burial grounds for Sarah, his wife, and he, offers to pay. And then the guy says, no, you can have the burial spot. You have the burial spot. Abraham winds up paying, but we actually were really kind, or like, he was actually really kind to the foreigner Abraham and offered the free burial spot for his wife Sarah. And this is just, it's all about respect, and there is no respect to be given when people don't respect you and they go through an illegal port of entry. That's who Donald Trump is talking about. Most illegals, most illegals are good people, is absolutely pathetic. Okay, and claiming illegals pay taxes, I don't think that's going to really convince Trump to change his agenda on immigration. People want the illegal immigrants to be deported. They don't like that they've disrespected our country, and they've disrespected the means in which you have to enter the country. So her name is Marian Buddy, is this pastor's name. She criticized Trump on several occasions outside of this. She called him antithetical to the teachings of Jesus and everything that we as a church stand for. To say she lacks forms of self-awareness does not even begin to describe this woman. Okay, she is teaching antithetical Jesus. There is a mutual respect throughout all kinds of instances in the Bible that foreigners give people who they enter their lands, and the foreigners give respect, and in turn, the people whose land they're on, they give respect to the foreigners. Okay, they treat the foreigners well, but the foreigners also have to treat the country in which they're residing well. And we do that. We treat foreigners very well. We have H-1Bs, we have naturalization process, we have asylum. There's all kinds of means. We just don't have like a closed border and like nobody can get in. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about you hopping the border at an illegal port of entry. I want to switch gears. I want to play this clip now. It's of the same prayer, and not to mention, this was supposed to be a bipartisan prayer. Like, this was supposed to be a prayer service. This woman claimed that Americans have wrestled with our original sin of racism. Number one, not the original sin. Our original sin was probably, I don't know, like greed. The original sin is Eve taking the apple. Okay, but she claimed that Americans have wrestled with the original sin of racism, which is not the original sin. The original sin that we're talking about is Eve in the garden, and Adam and Eve. That's the original sin that we talk about. So the original sin was not racism. It's full. It is ridiculous what she talks about. She says Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, they're martyrs. George Floyd held a pregnant woman at gunpoint. In no way is he a martyr. There is an actual definition for a martyr in Christianity, which is hilarious. I think it's funny that she, talks about these other religions and, synagogues and everything like that, but yet she claims to be a Christian. And I've talked about this before, where my eyebrow is always raised when, I hear Vivek Ramaswamy talk about Christianity and how the principles of Christianity are something that we need to abide by, but yet he's Hindu. It's really weird when you have a pastor who talks about other religion as if they are, as a pastor, your religion is correct. Your religion is truth. I am the truth. I am the light. I am the life. That's what Jesus says. And, she is giving validity to these other religions as a pastor, as a Christian pastor, Episcopalian. It's like some sort of knockoff version of Catholicism, I think. I'm not too aware of Episcopalian and what they believe, but she's calling Trayvon Martin and George Floyd martyrs. No. Martyrs, there's a specific definition in Christianity. Martyrs are people who die in the name of the faith. George Floyd did not die in the name of the faith. He died from a fentanyl overdose, folks. Take a listen to this. Here we go.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash.
All right, we already heard this. So, what is so brave about standing there and lecturing and chastising a sitting president about things that he's never done or threatened to do? He isn't threatened to deport children. Tom Homan says we're going to deport the kids with their mom and dad. That's what Tom Homan says. And by the way, this is the first president who has ever been inaugurated who is in his first term was pro-gay marriage. Okay, so he was the first president to be pro-gay marriage in his first term. And even Barack Obama, when he was inaugurated at that time, was not pro-gay marriage. Okay, so he's the first president. Now, Trump, of course, he went on Truth Social and he trashed Buddy. And here's the thing about Donald Trump. I hope that he's not distracted by this stuff. I hope that we focus on things like the economy, mass deportations, things to get our country back on track. I think he has an Achilles heel with this ego thing where he feels like he has to respond on Truth Social, which, I mean, it doesn't hurt anybody. He actually did call for her to apologize to the public, not to him. He demanded an apology from her and her church on behalf of the public. He said, you need to apologize to the public. What she did was bully. And her message pushed really satanic principles. I'm going to be honest with you. And she's a false prophet. And we have to be beware. Matthew tells us to beware of that. And this so-called bishop who spoke at this national prayer service on, Tuesday morning. She's a radical left, hard-line Trump hater, okay? She brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. She had a nasty tone. It wasn't compelling. It wasn't like she wanted to have a conversation with President Donald Trump. She had a nasty tone and she was bullying. She failed to mention the large number of illegal immigrants that have come to the country and killed people. Gabriel Calixto, Emma Schaefer of Springfield, Jabbar, he killed Laken Riley. Okay, and she refused to mention any of that, where people come to this country and kill people. That's not biblical. Like I said, there's plenty of instances in the Bible where foreigners afford the respect to the people whose land they are on. And there's a giant crime wave taking place in the U.S. And, Trump took to social media and said, quote, apart from her inappropriate statements, the service was very boring and uninspiring. She's not very good at her job. She and the church owe the public an apology. So Buddy was a bishop of Washington since 2011, making sure Washington's first female bishop. All right, she's the first female bishop here. And she serves as a spiritual leader for 86 Episcopalian congregations and 10 Episcopalian schools. She advocated for things for like racial equity, gun violence prevention, immigration reform, full inclusion of LGBTQ persons. So in other words, she's teaching everything against the word of God, and she advocates for everything against the word of God, and she takes politics and brings it into her church. Which I'm not saying that church and politics should be separate, but what she's doing is false doctrine. Okay, this is just straight out false to suggest that you have to be nice to foreigners who enter your country illegally and don't afford you the respect that you deserve, and doesn't respect the United States. No foreigner in the Bible ever did that. Look at Genesis all the way back in the beginning. Abraham did not do that when he was in a land that was not his own. Okay. Now the foreigners have always been, not always, but most of the time, some of the time in the Bible, Abraham was treated with respect from the leader where he was in that land, like the leader of that land, and the guy who was the ruler of the land treated Abraham with respect, and even went as far as to say, hey, you can bury your wife here, but Abraham insisted he pay the guy, and he did. So yeah, the United States no, we're not uniquely responsible for the sin of slavery. We are uniquely responsible for ending slavery, by the way, but we weren't the originators of slavery, the United States. Okay, and to say that George Floyd is a martyr, it's just totally ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. She's anti-biblical. There's no biblical basis to rob people of their arms. She's all about gun prevention, okay, and she has a history of trying to prevent Americans from having arms, and she wants to rob people of their arms. And in Luke, Jesus says to people, "Hey, sell your cloak for a sword, buy one, right? Buy a sword." Jesus is quite literally instructing his disciples here to arm themselves with swords during his final moments with his disciples before his arrest. And that also, people are like, "Oh, why do you need, such big guns?" It's because we need guns to defend ourselves against a possible government tyrannical tirade. Okay, like that's where the origins of the Second Amendment, even prior to the Second Amendment being drafted in Jesus' time, in biblical times, the government was after the disciples, and Jesus says to them, "Arm yourself with a sword, sell your cloak, buy a sword." Okay, so, and like I said, she agrees with transitioning children. Like, come on, we all know that that's just evil. Transitioning children's, mutilating their bodies and changing their genitals. That's just straight up evil. So I've got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We'll be right back. Disobedience to God. Yeah, it's just straight up blasphemy. The original sin was Adam's disobedience to God. That's why sin primarily runs through the male bloodline. So his disobedience, and Eve had eaten the apple and then convinced Adam to do it as well, and his disobedience to God is the original sin. Adam and Eve both, their disobedience to God, that is the original sin, and not listening to God, and his word and what he had said. So, no, quite literally, there's just so many instances in the Bible with the immigration. So, like Mary and her going. Well, number one, I think it's. Let me look that up. I want to make sure that I say the right thing. I don't want to act stupid, but Mary and Joseph, they flee their homeland and they go to a different country. I think it's because there's a king that's out there killing babies, and they fled the country. So I'm going to talk about that because back then there weren't like really borders either. With 1776 and America declaring her sovereignty, it kind of changes things a little bit, but not really. This whole principle of foreigners treating the country in which they're residing with respect is just as much of a principle as is you treat foreigners with respect. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to say that you need to treat foreigners with respect, but the foreigners don't need to treat you with respect, which is just straight up false doctrine. And you have to have both in order for things to work, respecting each other. And what's going on in this country right now is not a mutual respect. The foreigners are going through illegal ports of entry and they're killing our citizens. Emma Schaefer, Laken Riley, the list goes on. So that is what we're talking about here, is a mutual respect, and that's what Donald Trump wants. We have legal immigration, we have asylum seekers, we have H-1Bs, we have all of these different work visas that you can get currently, and they've decided that they didn't want to do any of that. We treat our foreigners very well, considering there's multiple avenues in which you can seek temporary citizenship or full naturalization. There's so many different options for you. And all we ask in return is that you pledge allegiance to this country and that you aren't a terrorist, right? And then you're allowed to come here to the United States. And all we ask is that you go through these channels so that way we can properly vet you. So we're going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Okay. I wanted to look this up, make sure that I had it all right. Yes, King Herod, fearing the new king of the Jews, Jesus, who might threaten his rule, ordered a massacre of all the male infants in Bethlehem, an event known as the Massacre of Innocents. To protect Jesus, Mary and Joseph fled Egypt, and they were guided by an angel who warned them of Herod's plans. They stayed in Egypt until Herod's death, after which they returned to Israel. Okay, so asylum seeking. Okay. This is, she was actually an asylum seeker, which is not something that we are against here in the United States. But there is a specific definition that Mary Joseph meet when they're seeking asylum in Egypt. They're being persecuted, they're being killed, they're going to kill a child because of their religious beliefs. He believes that there's going to be a new king of the Jews, a Messiah. This is religious persecution, and they're killing male infants in Bethlehem because of this belief that there is a Messiah. So this is the true definition of an asylum seeker. Okay, now what these people are doing today is not asylum seeking. This is cherry picking or hopping to different countries to find economic prosperity. And that is not what Mary and Joseph did when they fled King Herod. It was asylum, and we have a process for that. Hey, good morning. So do appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. It's a great morning. 7:27 a.m. I want to get to this Democrat. He's a hacky Democrat, and he tried to squeeze in there the thing about Elon Musk not really performing a, Nazi salute, but he says it's a Nazi salute. And this was during Senate confirmation hearings of Elise Stefanik. She's going to be the UN ambassador. That's Trump's pick for the UN ambassador. And anyone with a fraction of a brain knows that Elon Musk did not perform a Nazi salute. He's always had weird body motions and language. He has really weird body language because he's probably in the spectrum a little bit. He's a genius. It would make sense that he, acts a little bit socially awkward. And there's multiple instances where we see this. You remember Elon jumping? It's a very weird jump that he did at a Trump rally one time. And he just does these weird things with his body because he's socially awkward. He's just an awkward dude. And he does this thing where he says, "My heart goes out to you." And he took his heart and threw it out towards the crowd. And, this whole Trump is literally Hitler thing is so irrelevant. Clearly it's irrelevant because Trump still won, despite every mainstream media outlet trying to convince you that he's Hitler. Here's Senator Chris Murphy wasting everybody's time by questioning the UN ambassador. She is, or UN ambassador nominee. She's the pick, Elise Stefanik, and he started questioning her about Elon Musk and the Nazi salute. This is so silly.
What do you think of Elon Musk, perhaps the president's most visible advisor, doing 2 Heil Hitler salutes last night at the president's televised rally?
No, Elon Musk did not do those salutes. I was not at the rally, but I can tell you I've been at many rallies with Elon Musk, who loves to cheer when President Trump says we need to send, our U.S. space program to Mars. Elon Musk is a visionary. I'm looking forward to his work in DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and look forward to looking how we can be more efficient and effective. But that is simply not the case. And to say so is the American people are smart. They see through it. They support Elon Musk. We are proud to be the country of such successful entrepreneurs. That is one of our greatest strengths as Americans.
Let me share with you what a few Americans have said about it. Evan Kilgore, a right-wing political commentator, wrote on X, "Holy crap, did Elon Musk just Heil Hitler at the Trump inauguration rally? This is incredible. We are so back." Andrew Torba, who's the founder of the right-wing Christian nationalist social platform Gab, said incredible things are happening as he amplified the visual. The Proud Boys chapter in Ohio posted the clip on a Telegram channel with the text "Heil Trump." A chapter of the white nationalist group White Lives Matter posted it on Telegram. Thanks for hearing us, Elon. The white flame will rise again. I could keep going. Over and over last night, white supremacist groups and neo-Nazi groups in this country rallied around that visual. Does it concern you that those elements of the neo-Nazi and white supremacist element in the United States believe that what they saw last night was a neo-Nazi salute?
What concerns me is these are the questions you believe are most important to ask to the UN ambassador. I have a very strong record when it comes to combating anti-Semitism. We just had a historic election where President Trump earned historic support from American voters because of his strong leadership combating anti-Semitism, which has been a scourge across the country, skyrocketing since October 7th. So I intend to bring moral clarity to this position and continue to speak out as a voice, as a beacon of light, condemning anti-Semitism at the United Nations, which is representative of President Trump's record and President Trump's promises that he made on the campaign trail.
You are right. These are the questions I choose to ask because I think that your work and the administration's work on anti-Semitism only comes with real impact and credibility if it holds both right and left accountable. I simply don't believe that if a member of the squad made that same gesture last night, that there wouldn't be commentary from you and others. So I want to make sure that our work has credibility, and credibility comes with calling anti-Semitism and anti-Semitism behavior out when it comes from both the right and the left.
Okay, you guys never, ever, and come on now. The people on the left, they actually, George Soros, Governor J.B. Pritzker's family, they're all tied to funding these college protests where, not even college protests, they're violent riots, attacks on college campuses where Jewish students are taking refuge in libraries and blockading themselves in libraries and locking the doors because they fear for their lives. Okay, you guys didn't call out any of that. You haven't called out Governor J.B. Pritzker's family's ties to the Tides Foundation, to the Adala Justice Project. This is a radical left-wing anti-Semitic group. Nobody has ever called them out for that. And yeah, you guys don't call it out on the left. And I don't know what exactly he's talking about, but he listed off all of these, right wingers. Like, there's always going to be fringy, weird people out there who are disgusting anti-Semites. We're not talking about that. What he asked about was Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is always supported Israel, which is just ridiculous. The lack of intelligence has got to be intentional at this point. There's no way that they truly believe voters are this dumb, or as dumb as they are. The left has spent the last 8 years making up nonsense like this, that Elon saluted Hitler at this rally. And the American people are just so tired of the foolish games. And, we finally listened to the truth, and that's evident by them losing the election. The real scandal here is that he's wasting everybody's time with such nonsense, and these things should never be tolerated. Senator Murphy here is wasting people's time, and Democrat senators, they take pride in embarrassing themselves. So it's like, I think Elise Stefanik probably prepared herself during these Senate hearings. She was like, okay, this is going to happen. This sort of crap always happens. And I think she was prepared. She predicted that this kind of stuff was going to happen. The most insulting things about these claims is that it mocks the intelligence of the American people, to be honest with you. We logically can observe with our eyes, and if we were to just look up Elon Musk and his support of Israel, we would know very quickly that he has nothing to do with Hitler and Nazism. Let me take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Like, come on, folks. Like, get real, okay? You're a really bad Nazi if you're out there supporting financially Israel. I'm going to play, actually, the comments made by Elon Musk it was a presidential parade. This is it. Yep, here we go. I'm going to play his comments. I'm going to share this with you. And the fact that Senator Chris Murphy, claiming white supremacists rallied behind it, would convince her that Musk was a Nazi is deeply pathetic. Like, clearly, there are going to be white supremacists out there who use this or whatever. And I'm sure that there's, people on the left definitely who use what, members of the squad say about Jewish people and then take it to extremes and go to college campuses and, try to hurt Jewish people. Okay. There's always instances of that. But you can't convince me just because there's wacky people on the internet that Elon Musk is a Nazi. It's so pathetic. And, if he just were to have the smallest bit of critical thinking, I think that we would be in a much different place than him questioning Elise Stefanik about the Nazi salute during a Senate hearing. I saw that and I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. This is wild. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We'll be right back. Hello. Hey, good morning. It's such a blessing to have you here this morning. This is so insulting. Senator Murphy up there trying to get Elise Stefanik. She is the UN ambassador nominee for President Donald Trump. He's trying to get her to say that, yes, Elon Musk is a Nazi. Like, come on. He thought, honestly, Senator Murphy thought that claiming, white supremacists rallied behind it. Okay, sure. Even if they did, folks, which I don't even know if they actually did. He pulled some wackos on the internet, right? If there were people who were rallying behind this as if it was a Nazi salute, but even if they did, that's not going to convince Elise Stefanik that Elon is a Nazi or a Nazi sympathizer. Okay, that makes no sense. Just because wackos on the internet called it a Nazi salute, give me a break. Let's put our critical thinking cap on here, Mr. Murphy. Let's take a listen to actually Elon Musk's remarks at the presidential parade. It was part of the inauguration events. Here we go. So here he is. He's like throwing his hands up in the air, already doing weird body movements, and he's got weird body language because I think he's on the spectrum. I mean, a lot of people have said this. He throws his hands up in the air. He's really excited.
This is what victory feels like. Yeah. And this was no ordinary victory. This was a fork in the road of human civilization. Okay. There are elections that come and go. Some elections are, important, some are not. But this one this one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured. Thanks to you. We're going to have safe cities, finally, safe cities, secure borders, sensible spending, basic stuff. And we're going to take Doge to Mars. I mean, can you imagine how awesome it will be to have American astronauts plant the flag on another planet for the first time? Bam! Yeah!
He does more weird body language. He has more weird body language movements. I mean, yeah, that is really inspiring. Let's continue.
How inspiring would that be? There's always problems in life. There's this problem, solve that problem. But there need to be things that inspire you. There need to be things that make you glad to wake up in the morning and say, I'm looking forward to the future.
Yeah. So he's echoing what, President Donald Trump, his speech, his inaugural address, America has to dream again. Look, you weren't going to convince Elise Stefanik that, Elon Musk is a Nazi. His entire speech had nothing to do with anti-Semitism. Let's really talk about what Nazism, fascism is. It's anti-Semitism. It's, that's what this salute entails, and he's a terrible Nazi because guess what, folks? He supports Israel, not just saying it. He supports them financially. He's done that. So, I mean, come on, give me a break. I do want to shift gears. Let's talk about Mark Zuckerberg. Still don't like him. Still don't trust him. He's cost a lot of conservative pundits over the years, or conservative outlets over the years, a lot of money because of the censorship, and he was literally the censorship wing of the Democratic Party. That's what he did for the Democratic Party. He censored conservatives. He censored Republicans, and he censored critical information we needed to ensure that people were getting effective treatment for COVID-19. So he has a lot more sins, I think, to atone for before we start saying like, hey, welcome to our team, Mark Zuckerberg, right? Before I can even say that he is on board with free speech. I don't even think that he's really on board with free speech. I think that he's just, trying to do what's best for Meta, and he's trying to get Donald Trump to not look at what he's done over the years as far as censorship goes, and he's trying to evade consequences for his actions of censorship. Okay, so I don't even know how authentic his free speech cultural shift to free speech actually is. He says there's this cultural shift to free speech, and it's like, dude, no, it's always been free speech. You just didn't realize that you just trampled all over free speech by censoring people. But as long as there is a liberal with blue hair and a septum piercing at Facebook pressing buttons, and controlling the algorithms and throttling viewpoints that I don't like, if there's even one blue-haired liberal at Facebook or Meta doing that and controlling the algorithms, Zuckerberg, I'm sorry, you're not a pal of ours, okay? Okay. Now, I do want to turn your attention to how Mark Zuckerberg got caught glancing over at Jeff Bezos' wife's chest. Yes, during the inauguration. This is a viral video. I think it's hilarious. It turns out he likes, a woman's chest, okay? And this is clear that he's kind of slowly turning into a high T male, a high testosterone male. Mark, his day started at the Trump inauguration. He sat down in the oligarchy wing of the VIP section, the Jeff Bezos of the world. And look, they all attended the inauguration because they had to, folks. It's what's good for their companies. For years now, they've been anti-Trump, anti-Trump, anti-Trump. And then all of a sudden they started to shift when he won, okay? And Zuckerberg was probably upset he wasn't with the fighting wing of the inauguration. There was Conor McGregor was there. We had WWE Hall of Fame Logan Paul there. The guy who went up against, who was it, Tyson? I think it was Jake Paul. Jake Paul's the one who went up against Tyson. I'm sure that Mark Zuckerberg would have loved to go and sit over there because he's real into fighting now. But he was sitting next to the billionaire Jeff Bezos, who was sitting there with not his wife, I think it's his girlfriend, actually, Lauren Sanchez. And I guess Lauren was not aware of the dress code because she was wearing essentially what I would call a bra under a blazer, which, I'll say this for Zuckerberg, you're only human. I get it. Like, it's kind of on Sanchez here where, you were caught looking here. I mean, who wouldn't look? You're essentially wearing a bra under a blazer, which is just odd. So Zuckerberg, he took a glance, and it's like very noticeable on this video that's gone viral. I'll share it with you on the stream. But Zuckerberg, he actually made the mistake here, folks. People on the internet went to Lauren Sanchez's page, and it turns out Zuckerberg has been liking all of her Instagram photos. So users have been like looking at Instagram, and they can't help but notice that Zuckerberg has liked almost all of her photos. And excuse my unintentional pun here, but busted. I got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. Look, I think Zuckerberg perhaps he's going through some sort of transformation here from being a progressive puppet android robot thing. That's what he was, and maybe he's transforming into a more conservative alpha. Maybe he's in between alpha and beta male at this point. He used to be a beta male progressive puppet of the censorship wing of the Democratic Party. He started training in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He, grew out his hair a little bit, grew out a beard. His kids are getting older, so maybe he is starting to transition into a more like alpha male at this point. He started smoking meats, which is hilarious. Started watching fighting, right? So there's signs that he could be, experiencing like a transformation, but I don't know. I'm going to say that his claims that Meta is going to be this free speech platform, I really think that they're inauthentic. I think that he's just trying to do what's best for Meta, and he's trying to evade consequences under the Trump administration for censoring people and throttling people's content, which is, limiting people. I think it's unconstitutional. You stop people from pursuing happiness. That's the pursuit of happiness, is it's implied. You can't stop people from making a living, which is why COVID was so terrible. But I don't know. Maybe we'll see Meta, becoming a more free speech platform in the future. I doubt it. I think that he just comes out and says it so that way Donald Trump gets off his back. So if I had to offer a little bit of advice to Mark Zuckerberg here with this whole Sanchez thing, man, you got to relax a little bit and act like you've seen a woman before, okay? Because he's kind of simping over this girl, going all over her Instagram and liking all of her pictures. But to be fair to Mark Zuckerberg, you're only human. She's wearing a bra under a blazer, and I guess rich people can do that. But apparently, normal people, you have to abide by a dress code, right? You can't just wear a bra under a blazer to the inauguration. But Laura Sanchez is rich and just sitting there next to billionaire Jeff Bezos. I guess she can get away with whatever she wants. I'm back in just a little bit. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Here, I'll show you the video here real quick. For those of you on the stream, this is really hilarious. Clearly, he glances down at this woman's chest. And it's so obvious. But to be fair, straight up, I think that she's wearing a bra under her blazer, and it'd be kind of hard not to notice that. Even as a woman, right? I'd be okay, I kind of I think you're wearing a bra under there. Okay, so here's Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos right there next to his girlfriend. Look at this. Boom, right there. What? So there you have it, folks. He grew out some facial hair at one point. It looks like he shaved for the inauguration. But he might be transforming into a, somewhere in between a beta male and an alpha male. I wouldn't say that he's a complete alpha right now, but he's transforming maybe. But I still think that I saw this actually, somebody commented that he, where is it? Zuckerberg, my free speech, right? He just banned my business page. I'm willing to bet it's probably your business page. Is it about guns? He is a lying sack. He should be in jail for what he did, censoring Americans, and he has me in FB jail. Yeah, so this is destroying your pursuit of happiness. And I am no fan of Mark Zuckerberg. I'm actually not really a big fan of Elon Musk either. I'm defending him because with the whole Nazi salute thing, just because it's clear that he's not a Nazi, given his prior support of Israel. And come on, let's use logic. Let's put our thinking caps on, right? It makes no sense. He's a terrible Nazi if he is a Nazi, right? He's not doing a very good job being a Nazi if he's supporting Israel and Jewish people. But I also don't like Elon Musk for other reasons, right? The same reason why I could never, vote for Elon Musk or vote for Vivek Ramaswamy. I really liked Vivek Ramaswamy on the campaign trail. He makes so much sense. But this whole I'm Hindu, but I still think that Christian values and Christian principles are what we should abide by here in the United States. Yes, obviously we're a Judeo-Christian nation, and we should, but it concerns me, on a personal level, you are Hindu and you claim to be Hindu, but you clearly don't have that strong of principles towards this religion that you claim is your religion. There's nothing wrong. I think that there's this sentiment that there is something wrong with saying that your religion is the one true religion. There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, I would argue that that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to say that your religion is right. That's the whole point of religion. And it's concerning that you have Vivek Ramaswamy who says that, about Christianity. And, I thought that you were supposed to subscribe to, and you're Hindi, or in your religion is Hinduism. Now, Elon Musk, he describes himself as a what was it, cultural Christian. So I don't believe he thinks that God is real or believes in God. I think that he likes the Christian belief system and he likes like the values that come out of the Christian faith, but he's not a Christian, which is a little disturbing only because you say that it's a great religion in one breath, but then you're not willing to fully subscribe to that religion or fully give yourself over to a savior or give yourself over to God and proclaim Jesus as your Lord and Savior. And I don't like when people like just cherry pick the cultural parts out of Christianity and like the values out of Christianity, because that's not Christianity. That's just being, a good, decent person. And I won't argue with you that a lot of our morals come out of the Bible. Yes, the Bible is, if you read a little bit of Exodus, you'll know, or Leviticus, you'll know exactly where our laws come from. Like straight up, our laws come from like the Bible, right down to what you're supposed to do if your dog bites somebody. Okay. That's where all of our laws originated, is in the Bible. So yeah, I don't trust Elon Musk simply because how could you trust someone who has like feet in two different pools, Christianity and atheism? It's a little weird. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for us here on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. You can always text me, 309-451-9299. Real quick, I'm going to read one of your text messages. Joe, he says, Zuckerberg, my Mr. Free Speech, right? I just got banned my business page and I got thrown in FB jail. He's a lying sack. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I will believe it when I see it, when Meta actually becomes a free speech platform. And until then, I'm sorry, Mark, you're not a part of the club. Okay. You guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. I love you. We'll do it all over again tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. Find me on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Rumble. Bye. Love you.